What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is August 8th, 2024. It's 4:12 in the afternoon. And the return of SPY. I got to admit, today I was a little caught off guard. The reason is because today's labor report would indicate that the job market is still strong. The labor market's still strong, which isn't necessarily what the Fed wants to see when they're trying to cut rates typically. So I was a little bit taken back by the fact that we ran up so much today. With that said, it's the reason that I was interested in puts alongside with the fact that the Qs were trending down. Okay, and then our first trade that we took, Qs hasn't yet established a trend down, but they were at a level of resistance, which is why we got into that trade to begin with. But let's go ahead and launch charts and take a look at what I'm talking about here. So 8:30 report came out. Obviously, the market liked it. And then it stayed up here. I waited till after 8:30 to draw my lines so that I could have more accurate and up-to-date lines, which is why my pre-market lines come after the 8:30 report. And we started to push up. We were putting in higher lows, but struggling for a little bit to get through here, and then continued our move to the upside. Now we recognize that, hey, we got some resistance here. It's one of my lines from this morning, but call put scenario was, well, if we get a candle close above the call line, that's where we'd be interested in calls. Otherwise, if we breach the put line, we're looking for the next line down. We recognized that the market was pretty happy today. Most everything in the top 10 was green today near the open, and the pre-market was trending up. So we knew that we were counter trend trading until the Qs at least started to have this trend. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that the Qs are what you should be following solely when you're taking your SPY trades. I do think you should absolutely pay attention to the Qs because oftentimes they will stop SPY from moving in one direction, but usually even more so is whatever direction the Qs are going, most of the time SPY will go, okay? Now, we recognize the Qs were at a resistance just like SPY was. Told everybody before this, guys, if we get through the put line, which we had at 523.64, I do believe we'll make it down to 523.10. At that point, I wasn't interested in holding beyond that point simply because the rest of the market was so green. It was happy. So on counter trend trades, I tell everybody if we're trending up, you get in at resistance, you take yourself out at the first level of support. Well, we were putting this support at risk of being broken, so we were aiming for the next one down. We got it. Okay, that was about a 3-minute move. Happened. It was nice. And, what we really wanted to do was get down to the blue line. But at the time, our original target was 523.10. It was support here in pre-market. We got through this one. We were looking for it to come down to the next one. That right there returned about 20%, 20.5%, depending on when you got in. We had people buy it the second time we pulled back to the resistance here. The difference was at this time you had ADD, Qs, and NVIDIA all printing red at the same time. So you had momentum on your side here, and the Qs were coming off of a lower high. Now, if you guys watch my videos, I do believe that when we come off lower highs, you don't have to buy puts necessarily, but I do not recommend buying calls when we come down to support, right? This is a wedge. Usually this pattern breaks low, not high. Okay, so if you're aggressive, you got in because you assumed the Qs were going to break support, not hold it because of the lower high. Either way, we got through this line of support on the Qs. This could have been your entry. We stayed below that support, turned it into resistance. Ultimately, the Qs kept going down. Now, SPY started to go down a little bit, but it didn't make it down in the same amount that Qs did. And the reason for that was ADD was trying to trend up. So you have two opposing forces going in opposite direction, and SPY is stuck in the middle. Usually the Qs are strong enough to beat ADD, but it makes the moves down. So if the Qs are moving down and ADD is moving up, especially aggressively, it makes the SPY movement, even though it may be down, not very aggressive, not very clean. It just, you have opposing forces going in opposite directions. It's never going to be a clean move. What we like to see is when all of those things are moving together at the same time in the same direction. That's what you like to see. You see this green arrow here? That's the first time that it happened since the open, that all the things we want to see moving in the same direction at the same time was taking place, which is right here. And look at the move that followed afterwards. Okay, now puts, because we're pulling back to resistances on Qs and SPY. SPY was putting in lower highs, Qs was putting in lower highs. We're expecting us to go down to the next support. What we don't know is which support is going to ultimately be the last support, or at least the one that does hold and bounces us up, even if it's temporary. Once we get down to a level of support and we can't get through it and we start building wicks on the bottoms of these candles, which is something we talked about, I tell everybody, guys, I'm not liking this currently for the likelihood of it moving down. I hope it moves down, but because we don't know, we know that there's sellers trying to push it down, but we now know that there's buyers trying to hold it up. Please put a stop loss somewhere in between that point so that if the buyers win, we get out with profit, especially if you got in up here, clearly in profit, no problem. I was not in these trades. I was in this one and I got out here on my first trade. My second trade was calls. And I rode that one up there. And what we were looking for here, it's very simple. We were not just looking at SPY. In fact, we weren't watching SPY at all at this time. But we did take out the day's resistance on SPY at 954. That's criteria number one. We wanted Qs to be above. And I had said this, guys, if Qs can get above 440.30, having already been all the way down here, it will have been broken the downtrend. It's pulling back to support, high or low. We're expecting this to break high. We got to close above that. And I said, the last thing you got to worry about now is getting above this resistance right here, which happened at 10 o'clock. Now, the final one, if you wanted to be super conservative, would be waiting for a breach above this line that we couldn't get through before. We were talking about this trade before it broke that line because of the higher lows. So some aggressive people got in here, some waited till 10:02. Either way, the move to the upside was nice. We got right to where we wanted to go. Now the Qs was making it to their resistance of the day at 10:01. That was this line right here. This is where we thought, hey, it's held 100% of the time we got there. If you want to stay in this, ADD was running up at this point. I said, move your stops up. Hopefully we break through it. We broke through it. We continued up to the next line, which was at 10:04, which also coincided with Qs breaching 10:04 right here. We were near resistance on SPY, struggling to move higher. Get out of the trade. We don't know that today's going to be an uptrending day. Now at this time, I was comfortable buying calls. So for me, I only took 2 trades today. This one here was a 34% win. Which I was okay with. So actually it wasn't that one. We took this one. I took this one here. This one, I don't like to trade through 10 o'clock. The reason that people some people don't care about the 10 o'clock candle. I don't recommend holding through 10 o'clock, but what was important about this trade was the technicals worked, okay? The other thing about the 10 o'clock candle today is we had wholesale inventories. When you have reports at 10 o'clock, it makes the matters potentially even worse. If you were in puts here and you were holding them through 10 o'clock candle, you got toasted. You got absolutely toasted, okay? But if you waited till after 10 o'clock, everything looked much better to the upside. As we're moving up, we were stuck at resistance here. We got above it. We got to pull back to support the trend line. Also, SPY was on support right here. This was my second trade of the day. The first target we have to be concerned with is this double top, okay? 444.04. It's a whole number. This is on the Qs. Qs were on support. SPY was on support of the trend line. You got to look for the double top on SPY and look for the double top on Qs. It's not that it can't go higher. It's just that as we get near it, you have to remember that the last time we touched it, we came down, both on SPY and on Qs. So it's something to take into consideration. If momentum is on your side and you choose to stay in the trade through this level of resistance, all I ask you to do at that point is to put a stop loss at break even, somewhere in profit, so that if it doesn't continue to go higher, you get stopped out with something. If it does, you get to take advantage of the additional move, okay? The trade from here to this resistance was 30%, okay? It was 30%. So up to here, I don't know, maybe 40, 35%. I was out here. That was good enough for me. I was 2 and done, okay? Premiums are expensive. And that makes trading a little bit less comfortable for some people. When they get really stupid like they were on Monday, it makes it extremely uncomfortable for me too. In fact, I didn't trade on Monday because of how much the contracts cost at that time. But as we move higher, the natural feeling is, well, I feel like it's moved enough up now. I can't get comfortable buying calls. Guys, that's a natural feeling, but you got to get past it, because how many times have you said that to yourself on certain days and you just watched it continue to grind to the upside? Okay, you cannot do that to yourself. If you don't feel comfortable buying calls, it doesn't mean you should be buying puts instead. Wait for a reason to consider puts, okay? There was no reason, in my opinion, until we started to put in lower highs, which we have not been doing this entire move up. Okay, the lower highs didn't really start until 11 o'clock. So you don't see any put arrows up here because I wasn't comfortable buying puts. All right, now I'm done for the day, but I'm trying to help other people not do stupid things and help them get into trades that have a higher probability of chance of winning, not losing. Okay. Naturally, a lot of people don't believe we should be moving up, and that's okay. But at least wait for the right reasons to play to the downside. Lower highs, putting pressure on support, is a good reason to consider it. Now, whether you wait for the break of support or you want to get in at the trend line, which there's clearly one here, and you can look at one here and you can look at one on the Qs because it's the same thing. Lower highs, putting pressure on support, we're expecting this to break low, not high. So aggressive entry is a pullback to resistance during a downtrend, hoping for support to break. Statistics say that it's going to. That's awesome. Where do we expect it to go if it breaks? The next support down. Well, if you look below this yellow line to your left, what's the next support down? It's right here. Okay? It was old resistance, turned support. Okay? That's your first target. Well, if you're fortunate enough for that candle that brings you to that target to continue and close below that target, well, you look for your next support level down from here, which is potentially this split candle, but more importantly, this right here. So you had the opportunity to get out on Qs, whether it was the Qs hitting their line of support over and over again, or SPY making it to its line of support. Now, I pay attention more to the Qs than I do to SPY. When I take these trades, it keeps me in some of the SPY trades longer. It gets me out of some of the SPY trades sooner, okay? But I respect the Qs too much to ignore them. Likewise, still a very green day on ADD and the top 10. Qs ended up closing like 3% up today, and SPY was like 2.5% up today. Very green. So any red trades are counter trend trades. You got to keep that in mind. We're well aware of that, but I also have a ton of counter trend traders in my community, so I can't alienate them. I will always warn them that what they're doing is risky, more risky than normal, but it's your money. You do what you want. Here's how I would play it if I was going to do it. And lower highs, you will only see these candles or these arrows, these suggestions, when we're putting in lower highs. Because as we put in lower highs, putting more pressure on support, we expect that support to fail and run down to the next support. Now, this was one of those instances where the Qs, was breaking support. We were expecting it to come down. That's why we have an alert there at 444.14. Well, that happened at this candle right here at 11:49. That is when SPY, that's when the exit was. So we stayed below the resistance, or the support turned resistance, and we moved down to the next support on the Qs. We broke support on the Qs. We moved down to the next support on the Qs. That's all we were looking for. Okay. Now that entry, depending on when you got in, was from 62 all the way down to 85. I mean, that's a pretty good move. These are decent sized moves, guys. Then we start moving up. Jimmy, would you buy puts up here? No, because we're coming off higher lows. Higher lows are bad for puts. Well, what would you be looking to do? I'd be waiting for a break of resistance here, both on Qs and SPY, right? This resistance, I want to make sure the SPY is above that. I want to make sure Qs are above this resistance, okay? Or this one, whichever one. Either way, we got to get above and have room to go. Well, we got above the Qs resistance first. We needed SPY to get through its first or second. That's the candle that had happened. And now we're looking for the Qs to come up to resistance or SPY to get up to resistance. Now we didn't meet any resistance level on SPY, but we got to resistance on the Qs. We're using the Qs and SPY intermittently between each other because, as you can see in this particular move, we were moving up on SPY and on Qs. Where does SPY stop? At a level of resistance? On the SPY? No. It stopped because the Qs smacked into resistance and Qs didn't want to go higher. SPY didn't either because of it. So that's when we say, guys, it's not looking good for the Qs to continue up. Let's go ahead and take our profits here. Likewise, my counter trend traders itching to take a trade says, Jimmy, what do you think about puts here? I said, well, we're at resistance on Qs. We're at resistance on SPY. If you're going to take puts here, just recognize where you were likely to go if we move down. So from resistance to support, okay? Right here, it's a split candle. It's something we always consider as being support. So if you're going to take the risk, your stop loss is super tight. If we close back above this resistance on Qs or SPY, you got to get out of the trade, okay? If you're going to take the risk, keep a tight tolerance. This is a super risky trade. We're in an uptrending market. Everything is green. We were stuck here. So the reason for it was because it was obviously a decent resistance at the time. Play it to the first support down, whether it's SPY getting to support or Qs getting to support. Don't hang out in that trade for too long, okay? That's why that one was there. That was what we talked about right before I went to lunch. I went to lunch. We came back. I see we're putting in higher lows. Once again, I said, guys, because of what's happened in the past on SPY and on Qs at that level of resistance, I don't think I would buy calls until we got back above 446.77. I think if the Qs get above 446.77, they're going to make over $1 move to 447.95. Well, that all happens at 126. So we broke resistance during an uptrend, 126 entry. The full $1+ move brought you right to the next line or near it on SPY, but right to it on the Qs. Okay? Yes, it continued to go up. Yes, we don't know when it's eventually going to stop. It got to yesterday's high of day. SPY almost did the same thing too. All right? Again, short trade. We bought on a pullback. We were talking about this because people are like, Jimmy, when would you buy calls again? I said, you got to have room between where you're buying and where we think it's going to go based on what we've been told so far on the day. We know that we have a support level because it was old resistance, turned support here on Qs. Wait for a pullback to 448.35. We're aiming for the pink line. If you're entering there, you're exiting here or moving your stops in place if we get here. Okay, I don't know if it's going to get through these lines. It doesn't matter. I want you to know where it's likely to give you a hard time continuing in your direction. So you can make a decision without being surprised in case it stops moving in your direction at that point. Well, that was from here to here. Okay? Likewise, again, lower highs, but we have support here. Everybody, guys, you want to make sure that the SPY is getting below 530. We want SPY breaching 530. We need Qs getting below this level right here. Okay? 447.48. If that happens, we're looking for the Qs to run down to, we're looking for the Qs to come right here to this split candle, which is where it ultimately found support, and SPY down to its next support. Now, this wasn't a monster trade, but it's getting later in the day. And, you know, you got to be careful with these things. You got to respect support and resistance, especially on an uptrending day. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dog barking outside. He's right outside the window there being a pain in my booty. All right. The last trade of the day was same thing. If we can break through support on Qs and on SPY, support was being here on the Qs. We're expecting it to run down. It wasn't the orange line. I said it's going to be just shy of the orange line. We're looking for right here. Right here, where all these wicks and candles and everything stopped trying to move lower, 445.33, right off of that level, we got below support, down to the next support. That was the final trade of the day. Then we bounced off and went off into the ether. But point is, guys, support and resistance is king. Knowing which way the direction is, try and play with the market, not against it. Utilize the stuff that I'm teaching you in these videos in your trades. It works. You just got to stop doing the things that are making you consistently go backwards, right? Stop doing what doesn't work. I'm trying to show you what does work. I know it's hard to adapt new habits, okay? But I mean, we've got people in our community getting better daily. We've got people who are now green traders instead of red. It takes time. It's going to take a different amount of time for everybody, but it is possible. It is. Despite what people tell you, it is not impossible to succeed as a day trader. You just got to get control over your emotions, and you have to be patient. Patience is something I lack in often. I'm well aware of that. But my trade setups are something I'm comfortable with, and I'm comfortable with them because they work out a high percentage of times. Okay, I've proven to myself that what I want to see makes me comfortable enough to put my money at risk, and then I'm often rewarded for taking the risk. Every trade involves risk. I'm not blind to that. But I do wait for good setups before I take the risk. And I'm trying to get you guys to do the same. Just remember some of these rules. Higher lows are bad for puts. Lower highs are bad for calls. So if you're stuck in a call and we're putting in lower highs, consider an exit plan sooner than later. Likewise, if you're looking to buy puts when we're nearing resistance, but we're coming off of higher lows, skip the puts. You don't have to buy calls. I'm trying to show you how to skip trades not worth taking, because a lot of people don't realize how valuable that is too. All right? So if you got any useful information out of this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. If you guys like to join our Discord community, well, there's a link down below. We'd love to have you. It's free for the first week. You don't have to leave after that free week. There's a lot of action going on in our community, both on the paid side and the non-paying side. You're going to be surrounded by good-hearted people who are trying to learn. They're all adults. There's no drama in our community. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay? And I hope you all did well today. Our poll was outstanding. I think we're at 5-to-1 ratio, red to green, green to red, 5-to-1. And that's pretty much it. So tomorrow's Friday. I get to move my oldest daughter into college. I'll be on the mic until 12 o'clock, maybe a little earlier if we can have a good morning, because I got to get some oil change done and get my face fixed up and trimmed up and whatnot. But anyway, I hope you guys did all right today. Till tomorrow, I love you guys. See ya.